Hello everyone and welcome back again to Paragon Pathfinders. Today I'm going to show you how to find the angle between two vectors. Here we have two vectors. Our vector A equals 6i plus 8j plus 10k and B equals 6i plus 8j minus 10k. In case you are still new to this concept, the I represents the x component, the j represents the y component, and the k represents the z component. The same also applies for vector B, where I, j, and k means x, y, and z respectively. Now, whenever you are asked to find the angle between two vectors, this is a formula that you must know. A dot B equals the magnitude of A multiplied by the magnitude of B multiplied by cos theta. Now, to isolate theta, you simply divide both sides by the magnitude of A and the magnitude of B. So simply divide both sides by the magnitude of A and the magnitude of B. And then when they cancel out, you now have that cos theta is equal to the dot product, which is A dot B, over the magnitude of A multiplied by the magnitude of B. And to solve for the angle, what you simply do is to take the cos inverse. So you see that theta is equal to cos inverse of the dot product of the two vectors, which is A dot B, then over the magnitude of A multiplied by the magnitude of B. So this is the formula that we are going to use to find the angle between two vectors, or between these two vectors as given in the question. Don't forget it. So let's solve it together and see what we shall obtain as the angle. So we say solution. Right here we have our vector A to be equal to 6i plus 8j plus 10k. So I'm going to say 6i plus 8j plus 10k. And our vector B equals 6i plus 8j minus 10k. Now, whenever you are finding the dot product of two vectors, you have to remove the direction. Remember that I said the ij and k represents the x, y, and z components, and you must remove them whenever you're finding the dot product because it gives you a scalar, not another vector. So we say that A dot B, okay, equals. Now, why am I doing this? If you look at the formula, it says that for you to find the angle between two vectors, there are three things you need to know. The first one is the dot product of the two vectors. The second one is the magnitude of the first vector, or vector A, and the magnitude of the second vector B. If you can know the three of them, then you are good to go. These are the only things that you need to know in order to find the angle between the two vectors. So let's begin with our A dot B. Now I'm going to okay, I'm just going to write it this way. So here we have a 6 comma 8. Okay, so I'm going to remove the directions, and that's what I'm currently doing right now because we don't want the direction. And then comma 10, then dot. Right here we have our vector B, and this is 6 comma 8 comma minus 10. Okay, so now let's go ahead and multiply them. So we do it this way. We say I for I, okay? J for J and K for K. Don't multiply randomly. It has to be I for I, J for J, and K for K. This is our I, this is our I. So we say 6 multiplied by 6, then plus, let's do J for J, 8 multiplied by 8, and then let's do for K for K. Let's do K for K. this is now going to be plus 10 multiplied by minus 10. So let's go ahead and multiply them out and solve. So a dot b equals 6 times 6 is 36, plus 8 times 8 is 64, and then 10 times minus 10 is minus 100. Simplifying further, we have 36 plus 64 gives us a 100 minus 100. And then when we simplify further, we'll see that our a dot b equals 0. Now, here is one thing that you need to know. Whenever you take the dot product of two vectors and you get a 0, it simply means one thing. It means that the angle between the two vectors in question is 90 degrees. I say this again. Whenever you solve or whenever you take the dot product of two vectors and get a 0, it means that the angle between them is 90 degrees. It also means that the two vectors are perpendicular to each other. Now, having found a dot product, let's go ahead and find the magnitude of A. So I will say solving for the magnitude of A. So we say that the magnitude of A is equal to, this is a formula to use. So this is going to be x squared plus y squared, then plus z all squared. Okay? So we shall also use the same formula for B. Let's substitute and see what we should obtain. Now, this is the magnitude of A is equal to, then for the x component, we had a 6, and then we square it. For the y component, we had an 8, we also square it. And then for the z component, this is a plus. For the z component, we had a 10 there, so we also square it. So let's see what we shall obtain when we simplify. In case you don't know where I got this from, let me show you. Here we have that our vector A is 6i plus 8j plus 10k. And then I explained to you that the I represents the x component, the j represents the y component, and the k represents the z component. So that's it. Now, we say the magnitude of vector A is equal to 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64, and 10 squared is 100. So when you add them up together, you have 36 plus 64 is 100 plus 100. And we can see that the magnitude of A is the square root of 200. So we found this one. Let's now go ahead and find the magnitude of vector B. So I will say solving for the magnitude of vector B. We also use the same formula. So we say that the magnitude of vector B is equal to, let me just solve directly. Here we have 6 all squared plus 8 all squared. Then we have plus negative 10 all squared. Because our B has a negative for the Z component. So let's evaluate them and see what to obtain. 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64, and negative 10 squared is 100. Just like when you have negative 10 times negative 10, it gives you a plus 100 or a positive 100. So we say plus 100, and then the magnitude of our vector B is equal to 36 plus 64 is equal to 100, and then plus 100. This means that the magnitude of vector B is equal to the square root of 200. Now we found what we're looking for. We found the dot product of A and B. We found the magnitude of A. We found the magnitude of B. So let's now apply the formula and see what we should obtain. So we say solving for the angle, we use the formula A dot B is equal to the magnitude of A multiplied by the magnitude of B, then cos theta. When we make theta the subject, what we're going to obtain is, or let's just do it step by step. We simply divide both sides by the magnitude of A and the magnitude of B. Here we have the magnitude of A multiplied by the magnitude of B. So we simply divide both sides, and then we have that cos theta is equal to A dot B over the magnitude of A multiplied by the magnitude of B. And then we can also go ahead and take the cos inverse. So we say that theta is equal to cos inverse of A dot B over the magnitude of A multiplied by the magnitude of B. So let's plug in and start solving. We got a 0 as the magnitude. We got a 0 as our A dot B. So we say that theta is equal to cos inverse. Here we had the 0, because I remember we solved and found the 0 as the dot product. Here, the dot product is a 0. And then the magnitude of A is 200, root 200. The magnitude of B is also root 200. Then we say 0 over the square root of 200 times the square root of 200. And then we can close it. So right here, if we simplify this further, theta is equal to cos inverse. So 0 divided by this will give us a 0. So we have cos inverse of 0. When you divide 0 by root 400, because let's say when you multiply the two of them together, when you divide them, you get a 0. Okay? Now, this 0, the cos inverse of 0 is going to give you 90 degrees. So you can punch that on your calculator and see what you're going to get. Cos inverse of 0 will give you a 90 degrees. So theta is equal to 90 degrees. And this implies that the angle between these two vectors is 90 degrees. Okay, remember when I told you that whenever you're solving for the angle between two vectors and you determine the dot product to be equal to 0, that means that the angle is going to be 90 degrees. So this is the solution to this very question. See you in the next video where we shall be talking more about vectors. Thank you and bye.